Scornia,
Yes.
Sullentrup, Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated June 3rd, 2019? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtzmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Scornia?
Yes.
Wessels.
Yes.
Having read the minutes, are there any questions or comments?
If not, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated June 3rd, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Report of Department Heads, Public Works Director John Nilges, street excavation permits, temporary asphalt patch.
John?
Okay, good evening, council. Just wanted to brief you real quick on something engineering's been working on. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar, but our street excavation process for replacing water lines and sewer lines underneath the street is set by city ordinance. Essentially what it means is that when you backfill a trench, which we've all driven over them on any street in town, you backfill that up to the surface with rock, with granular material, and you compact it with a city inspector present. Over time, those trenches do settle out, regardless if you compact them, for 4 days, they'll still settle out with some rain and whatnot. So we've received over the past couple of years, and I've kind of been just tracking them by hand, just different complaints. I know Mary can attest that we've had some potential of insurance claims on trenches that lose gravel over time. So gravel will spill over when a rain event occurs or something of that nature, creates kind of a pothole and some concern. Now, the city is not responsible to maintain that trench. We are just responsible to do the final asphalt patch when it's all said and done. Now, as you all know, we can't do that in a day. If somebody wants to cut a trench, we're not going to have that thing covered back up in a day, nor would you want us to, because they tend to settle out anyway. So what we do is we leave about a month ago, maybe a little more than that, in wintertime for sure more than that, before we do the final asphalt patch. This proposal, or what I'm just bringing to your attention, is what I'd like to do is add one more step to that process, which does require code amendment, to cap that trench off with cold patch asphalt, which is essentially readily available. It's just one little step to keep everything kind of the gravel and materials in check. It also prevents us from chasing down the contractors over and over again because they're not keeping up with those trenches. It would add a cost, obviously, not necessarily to the permitting process, but more to the actual costs with the contracting community to fix a trench. And then once it's done, we would do the same thing, come through and do a final asphalt patch. So I just kind of want to talk about it, maybe bring it to your attention. This is something that we see, and I know I get calls from various people really throughout the week with trenches essentially settling out and those type of things. So I just kind of want to bring it to your attention, maybe bring it up for discussion. If it's something you don't see a need for us to pursue, then we won't. It's just I'm trying to solve a problem before it presents a bigger one. So.
Any questions or comments?
Well, say again, John, I think the fact the contractor's going to be responsible for this.
They
We're
always
just going to
are.
require this
Yeah,
when they're finished.
The contractors always are required to maintain their trench until the city can come in and do a final asphalt patch. The problem with it is since the code only requires us to do gravel to the surface,
Right.
that gravel spills out over hours sometimes just because rain events, things of that nature. So what cold patch does, it kind of seals it or caps it, chokes it off essentially to where it's a drivable surface, and we won't see that spillage of asphalt spillage of rock that we're always chasing after contractors to fix. And it just limits that risk of, quite honestly, potholes. So it's just one extra step, but since it's set by city code, I got to kind of bring it to your all's attention.
Now, when a trench sinks with the cold patch on it, they just add more cold patch?
Correct. You just add more cold patch. We do remove all, depending on what size, what the street is, all cold patch and rock underneath gets removed basically 4 to 6 inches when we do our final asphalt patch, but that all gets removed. So yes, we would come back in then and continually fill. It allows for that choking off. Now the other option is the city could do the patching. I haven't done enough, put pen to paper to figure out how much manpower it would take for us to go out and cold patch it. And quite honestly, the schedule that is not ideal. I mean, if I was personally was to open a street up, then I got to call the city to go get it cold patched to come in. It just becomes this nightmare. To me, it should always be on the contractor. They're the ones they're the one who has.
Cold patch readily available?
Yeah, it's available at West's asphalt plant. It essentially can get a load of it and stick it at a shop, and it sits there. You know, it's fairly inert. It doesn't do much. So,
Buy it by the bag.
what's
Yeah,
that?
you
You
buy a
buy it by
bag.
the bag. You can. So we're talking like an inch and a half, 1 inch, inch and a half, whatever the section is. But like I said, that whole process is set per code. So this wouldn't be a thing, you know, if it wasn't that.
I see no problem with it at all. I think it's a no-brainer. But you're saying it has to be changed in the code, not per contract, that you cold patch over every time you leave a trench?
To change per code. The code.
Change of the code. We got
it's a
very
minimum
detailed
standard.
with this
Okay.
over the years.
It's just a minimum standard, and all it would be is our inspectors when we're out in the field. You know, obviously we are watching the compaction, you know, as it's coming up in lifts, things of that nature, which, you know, we can always do better, but, you know, we're trying hard. The last piece before we close out would be that it's asphalt cold patched. What that also does is allow the city a little bit time to get in there and do that final patching. I know you don't see it kind of on our major streets because, quite honestly, I have the street department go out there and do it on our dollar, and then I go chase after the money from the contractor, which is not ideal. I don't think that that's our responsibility to do, but we always have that as an option. My concern is the traveling public. I don't think a trench opened up is a public issue. I think it's a problem for the homeowner who has the problem going on.
I know that the city does it when they have like a sewer main or water main break and they have to do some work on the street. Sometimes the patch is a little bit too high.
Yep.
Is there going to be a certain amount that they have to have in there?
Well, and the reason for that is just to allow for settlement. You're correct. So there's a bump, essentially. You know, I think it would be ideal that if we compacted it to, you know, to the surface and then cold patch capped it, and then you would see that cold patch still settle out. But then we'd come in and kind of slick it off again as kind of things, you know, as it starts to settle out. So I think we could address that as well with this, that it wouldn't be too high. You know, we just take more. We require the contracting community to take more effort, and then we as well would take more effort. We've been doing cold patches on all of our trenches for, what, Kevin, 2 years now? 2.5 years? We do it on our own.
Cold pack inspection, are you going to do that?
What's that?
A cold patch inspection?
What it is we just before, at the end of the day or the end of the job, that's the last step. So there is no inspection on compaction, really. It's just, you look at it, you see that there's some on it. Like I said, the idea is just to choke the rock off so it doesn't spill out. That's the problem we have, is when you drive over rock, when it gets wet, it spills out of the trench, which creates a pothole.
Is it a problem more with local contractors or with out-of-town contractors, or you just don't keep track?
I don't keep track of that, but it's a problem with all of them, really, quite honestly. And it's a tough thing to keep up. I mean, think about this. You put some pipe in the ground, you compact it, then you leave for 2 weeks. I mean, you're not driving by that patch every single. If you're a contractor, you want to move on to the next thing. So this just provides that little bit of insurance till the city can get there and do the final asphalt. And you don't want us doing it right away, because a trench will always settle to some level.
But the trench is supervised, the backfill is supervised by,
Correct.
was it Scott?
Yeah, Scott typically, Andrews, I mean, I've been out at some as well. I mean, we do the best we can with what we have, but yes, that is the procedure. They call our office, we watch it, make sure compaction.
The downside is that, you know, it doesn't get that water jetted at all, but it doesn't settle it that much anyway.
There's one up on Fifth Street right here, Schrader Jugs, that had cold patch on it immediately after. We came in and filled it. If that wouldn't have been filled, you probably would have saw an inch settlement. And that was compacted in 6-inch lifts, 8-inch lifts as it came up. So I agree that you don't get it water jetted, which provides additional compaction. But even with cold patch, water gets into it to kind of, you know, to provide that.
What's the time period for the compaction?
Honestly, it really, what we do is we have an ongoing, we call it an asphalt patch list. We try to get through town 3 times a year, once at the beginning of the year, once in the middle, and then once in the summer. The one in the middle sometimes is tough to do, just with everything else going on, but we usually try right before wintertime. So honestly, in the wintertime, if you have a trench that's done in November, it will not get patched most likely until April the next year when the asphalt plant's open, which those are typically our best performing patches because they've had all winter to settle out. So that's why we've gone to this temporary. I don't know if you've seen it, I've been putting temp on the patches just so everyone knows that they're temporary. But we've been doing that to try to, improve the longevity. You still have that time period where there's a little bit of a bump, essentially. But overall, once we move into permanent hot mix patches, it definitely has improved. So,
We can't vote on this to the first of next month.
yeah, I don't even have the ordinance
I
ready to
think we
go.
should proceed with, write the ordinance.
Small increase to stave off, a future problem. Like I said, Mary can attest that we've had one on High Street I could think of last year where there was a tire popped, and nobody would have ever known because it rained all weekend, and it's just something that happened. I really believe that following a procedure to cap that off would have prevented that. So,
Okay,
kind of minor, but want to make sure we always doing better.
all right. Thank you.
Well, I'm here, yeah, real quick, Beaker Studerman, I don't know if anybody's been out there. I would anticipate that the sidewalk on the south side of Studerman Road will be extended to 47 by the end of the week, or, to the weekend. Project's going well. I haven't heard any complaints other than maybe some site distance issues at Dawn Drive. We're working on those to improve. Specifically, there was a porta potty kind of in the way, and they've been staging some construction material. It's kind of hard to see around the well house. We did move that curb and gutter, like I said, to the north approximately 3 feet to try to improve that site distance pulling out of Dawn on the Studerman as much as possible. And MoDOT did approve that change order, so that was done with 80/20, that change order, so that's a positive. As far as the airport, we are still waiting to get the contract back from the low bid to get that, so I do not have a schedule. Once I get that schedule, you guys will all know, be the first to know. So, because it does involve a closure of the airstrip.
Is our mechanic working over there yet, or
What's that?
is the mechanic
Yeah,
working?
yeah.
Yep.
Mechanic's been working there for probably going on 4 months, maybe. It has generated a lot of interest in the airport. I mean, what they tell me is people are flying out of Spirit to come out to Washington to get something worked on. They look around, sure wish there was space out here. So it's generating a lot of interest. Positive too, anytime you fly an airplane out, they like to fuel up before they fly it back in. So that's a little bit of a benefit as well.
We need to build more hangars.
Oh, yeah. I like
That's
that.
all
You
there
said
is
it.
to it.
Yeah. More hangers.
Got some back there?
All right,
Got
thank
some in
you.
the back room,
Back room.
hangers.
Police chief, purchase of used.
Thank you, John.
2015 Chevy Impala Police Pursuit Package Sedan.
Good afternoon, council, or good evening, rather. The two things before you, it's both purchase of a Chevy Impala Police Pursuit Package vehicles. One's a 2015 with 29,000 miles. The other's a 2013 with about 58,000 miles. The 2015 is from Lou Fuse. The person we deal with for all the new vehicles, John Dolan, knew we were looking for something for detective vehicles, so he got this in and gave me a call. It is in excellent condition, excellent shape. At $10,000 for that mileage and that year vehicle, it's a deal hard to pass up. And then he also got with me on this other one. This other vehicle is from the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I talked to Todd Deal, who's in charge of the fleet management there. Again, he told me about this vehicle. This vehicle was used by a gaming agent, so it didn't get the patrol miles that it would get like a regular highway trooper would. It went from casino to casino, so it got pretty well normal driving. So it's in excellent condition again, and we need these two to replace the 2010 Chevy Impalas we currently have. One has 82,000 miles on it. The other one has 62,000. We felt the need and feel the need to replace those detective vehicles. We never get new vehicles for the detectives because it's a low mileage vehicle. They don't get the patrol mileage out of those. They don't drive as much. Getting those vehicles, we keep them longer and get our money out of them. In 2018, we were scheduled to get 2 vehicles, 2 brand new ones. Because of a late delivery by the dealer, we didn't get them until October. So in a sense, they had to be paid for this budget. So we didn't buy any vehicles in 2018. The 2 vehicles from then were paid for this budget, so that leaves us with money for 1 vehicle, so we have $49,000 in that budget. So this vehicle that budget will cover these 2 vehicles and leave enough to purchase 1 new SUV. So I'm recommending and requesting we be allowed to purchase those 2 vehicles. And I did check locally to see if any of the dealers here have any police pursuit packages, and none of them carry any or had any in stock.
What do you do with the 2 we want to get rid of?
Lou Fuse will give us,
It's 47.
I'm trying to think, around $4,000 for them, $4,700 on trade
Or both?
or both. And that will, again, reduce the total cost. So we would get about 2,000 something on an auction, public surplus.
Chief, they explained at 15 why they were getting rid of it with such low miles, because they went to an SUV. But why is the state patrol getting rid of that other one?
That's their policy and procedure. They go so many miles and then they get rid of a vehicle, put it in fleet management, buy brand new vehicles, and then they get a premium for the vehicles because they're only certain mileage. And this one being a gaming commission or gaming agent vehicle, it doesn't get the driving that they would on the pursuits and things like that you'd get from a trooper's car. So it's driven a little more gently, I guess you'd say.
You said we're gonna get another SUV for the regular
Regular,
patrol fleet?
yes.
Have we traded in any of the SUVs yet?
No.
Are we at that point?
Well, our emergency manager would like one,
He's getting one.
and I have a detective that's a rather large gentleman that would fit better in an SUV than he would in a sedan, so. But
I
this.
guess my point was, are we better off keeping our sedans as they roll out of patrol here as opposed to buying some? I mean, we normally get trade-in values, all we get back out of them.
Well, when we get the SUVs that we start cycling them out, then we'll look at keeping them and depend upon mileage.
What is the rotation?
I usually go around 75,000. I try to. I've been extending that because we want to make a little better use of funds and keep with the city budget a little
What year
bit.
did we get that first one?
First one, 2011, I think, or 12, one of the 2. Might be 2012. So this next year, we're budgeting 3.
I think I was here, and that would have been 13.
So 2019, 2020 budget, I'm asking for 3. All 3 of those would be cycled out. And they would either go, depending upon mileage, to a detective, or wherever we traded them in, or whatever we do with them.
Thank you.
But that's pending budget approval.
Right.
Make a motion, send this on to council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Hydrich, to send this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're getting 3 vehicles for about $49,000, so that's a pretty good deal. One of them brand new.
Thank you, Chief.
Economic Development, small TIF agreement, 18 East Front Street.
Sal?
Yeah, so in your packet tonight for this agenda, and then also there's an ordinance later on tonight, is a request for our next project for the small TIF program. I'm not sure if all of you are still familiar, we've only done one of these, but quickly, the small TIF program allows for property owners in an active TIF district, so basically downtown, to rehab an historic building. And they can qualify for a number of programs. We have 5 programs, and they can actually piggyback up to 3 of them. That if they agree to the terms of the program, they can then get an 80% rebate on their property taxes once the assessors increases their property. So once they finish the project and the county comes in and increases their taxes, if the county comes in and increases their taxes, They pay that bill normally, then they bring that, as part of the program, they bring that receipt to us, and we can rebate up to 80% of the property taxes.
For how long?
Up to, well, it goes till the program expires, which would be 2030, or until they cap out under whatever program they qualify for, so whatever comes first. So this specific project is the Ed Moreau's building. It says Leather, sorry, I'm thinking of the LLC.
It's in your packet later too, in the council packet. I think it's
Leather.
Riverfront Leather.
Yeah,
Inc.
Riverfront Leather. So that's the name of our LLC. They are proposing to rehab that building. And they're participating in two programs. One is the historic facade renovation. So under that program, you can get up to, if it's enough increase in taxes, you can get up to $40,000 in a rebate. And then they're doing the upstairs residential, which gets them up to $30,000 in rebates. So that could be up to $70,000 if their property taxes increase enough. So they plan on 3 commercial units on Front Street, and they do have 3 tenants lined up on the waiting list, and then they're planning to have 6 residential units up top. According to the whole packet has the application in there. The most important page or the attachment that we make them do is from, in most cases, they have their accountant do it. So Ted Watkins submitted it for them. It shows their estimated increase in property taxes. So it's the best estimate we know what their abatement's going to be annually once they turn in that first receipt. So according to their estimates, so they have to turn in 2 construction estimates of what they think it's going to be, and then they take that estimate and they base it on the county's current assessment. So they're thinking that the applicant will see an increase of $4,029 annually in property taxes just on the improvements they're going to see. So 80% of that would be $3,223 annually. And it's just an estimate that's based on the county's current assessment. Every other year that could change. But I'm just wanting you to show those numbers because at that amount, they will never get to cap out in the program. So that'll be $3,200 annually for the next 10 years is what they'll be able to rebate on that. And we rebate that out of our existing TIF program. So we'll have the funds available for that. There is a pretty tough vetting process or a pretty strict application for this. If you go through the packet, there's a lot they have to turn in. And the reason for that being is that if this program were to be much more popular than it is and we had a lot of applicants, we would have to screen them based on what we thought was best for the community because we wouldn't want to give away those rebates to everybody. But given that, one, this is an appropriate program, they are using the historic facade, they are doing the upstairs residential, 2 goals that we wanted to facilitate with this program, and the fact that it's only our 2nd active small TIF, we're not in any concern of hemorrhaging our TIF funds on that. There should be $3,200 a year out of that. Right now there's about $600,000 sitting in that we still will continue to take funds for until 2030. So we are recommending approval of it. We think it's a successful, a good application of this program. And then that means that if approved tonight, they can start purchasing material for their construction because they can only turn in receipts for anything after July 1st, 2019. So this basically gives them the green light to go ahead. And they have 180 days to either complete or come back and say, here's why I'm not done yet.
Sal, can you give them 5 different criteria that we have?
Yeah, so
This was set by ordinance back when we started the TIF, I guess, or shortly after that.
you want the 5 programs or the criteria?
5 programs.
Yeah, so the 5 programs that are available are the historic building facade. You can get up to $40,000 for that. That's what they're utilizing. The second is non-historic facade. So if you're not in a historic district, you cannot piggyback that. So that's kind of a catch-all. The third is, hold on, change the facade building. Oh, those are the exact, hold on, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. So it's facade, non-historic facade, upstairs residential, upstairs commercial, or there's a catch-all where if you don't qualify for any of those, you can have one program where if you're just rehabbing any building, any existing building in the district, you can get up to $30,000 for that. The qualification for that is it has to be environmentally friendly material, LEED certified. So if you don't qualify for any of the 4 programs, there is one last program, it's a catch-all for environmentally friendly.
This is probably a question for Bridget, but what happened to the program with the 1% for 5 years up to 100,000?
They're sold out. It's all spoken for.
Really?
Yep.
Just 100,000 or?
No, it was 320, I think, and they have 4 applications, I believe. So I think they had to turn people away because they didn't want to give all of it to one person or vice versa, or give too many small loans out. So
Is that annually?
so that has to be repaid within 3 years or 5 years.
No,
But
I'm
once
talking about, you say they're out of money now, but is it every year they do
that-
that?
no, so they will be able to do it once it's repaid. So once those 1% loans are paid back, they have to be paid back in 5 years or less. Then they can take that money that was paid back and do the program again. So if someone pays it back quicker, downtown could turn around that program. But if they take the 5 years, they won't have the funds for 5 years.
Sal, are those caps, that 40/30, are those caps dependent on the costs of the work they're going to be doing?
No, so the program that they fall into designates those caps. So once you're doing the historic facade, the cap is 40, and once you're doing the historic, the upstairs residential, it caps at 30. And it varies project to project if you're going to meet that. The one that we have active right now, which is Street Side Taco, that is a project that will almost certainly, it was close, but based on the assessment increase that we saw this year, will almost certainly cap out at their 70 grand because that building was completely empty. And so the property value went up significantly. And so their 80% is a lot larger when their property assessment goes up that much. This building technically isn't vacant. There is an existing business upstairs that still registers there. And so the county has been assessing it commercially all this time. So that's why you see the increase that they're estimating is only about 4 grand, which is still significant, but it's not as much as you see on other rehab projects. So.
Any other questions or comments?
One thing, requirement for this is mandatory review, mandatory compliance at historic preservation, and they did receive that. So,
Make a motion to send it on to council.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Scornia, to move this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you.
Finance, banking services proposal.
Mary?
Good evening. Included in your packet, you have a recommendation for banking services. I did go out for bid, all the local, and gave the proposal to all local banks. I received 3 bid proposals back. I want to say that they were very, very close and very generous. We have a lot of local banks here that really care about the community, and it shows because they all bid 0 fees for us on a monthly basis for wire transfers, all of these different things that they could charge us for. They chose not to charge us. The only real difference, I should tell you the 3 banks, Bank of Washington, First State Community Bank, and we received one from Bank of Franklin County, who we're currently with. Those were the 3 banks that responded. The only real difference between the bids was the calculation for the annual interest. And it was extremely close. 2 of the banks used the federal funds rate for calculation, and one of the banks used the 30-day T-bill rate. So after looking at and analyzing all of those different rates, there was a difference of like $500 to $5,000, depending on what our bank balances would be in that year. So it was very, very close. It came down to just the fact that Bank of Franklin County's interest rate was a little bit more advantageous, and we are also currently with them. So the banking contract is for a year, and we do have a clause in there to automatically renew for 1 additional year. So my recommendation is, we've had a very good banking relationship with Bank of Franklin County, and they catch a lot of our different things with the city, and they keep a really, really close eye on our stuff. For example, if I submit a wire transfer for $1 million, I'm usually getting a phone call back to say, hey, are you sure, is this legitimate? So they double check with all of that and with everything out in the breach and all of that with the computers and everything. They are really on top of it, as well they have to be with being a banking institution. So they are really on top of our funds. So my recommendation is that we stay with Bank of Franklin County for the additional year contract.
Are you saying the Bank of Franklin County is a pretty reputable bank?
I think so, yeah.
They're from
And they're here. Bob and Becky are here if you have any other questions. But yeah, they keep a pretty close eye on us, and it makes me feel a lot more comfortable having somebody look at that. So, yeah.
So the renewal is for 1 year and then?
And an additional automatic 1-year renewal. I think both parties have 45 days to cancel.
Would be 2 years before you'd go out for bids
Correct.
again. Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Second.
All
I
right.
have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Patke, to send this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you,
you.
Mary.
Parks and Recreation, janitorial services.
Wayne?
Evening, council. I'm here to talk about janitorial services for the public library. And so I have a recommendation that you'll find in your packet. Back in January, shortly after I started, we were short-staffed at the library, and at that time, we went to a staffing agency to try to keep up on things over there, and that's worked out fairly well. But you know, anytime with a staffing agency, should never be permanent. With that said, we've went out to bid for janitorial services at the library. We received one bid from the local business, FKI Cleaning Services. It's a 2-year bid with an option for a third. And how that bid compared to what we were doing, the temp agency charges us $585 a week, temp agency charges us $600 a week, or $31,200 a year. Our city employee over there, their salary was approximately $35,000, almost $36,000 a year. And then FKI services would be $585 a week, or $30,420 a year. So it's a little bit cheaper than the temp agency. It's cheaper than city staff. We have been using FKI here at City Hall since May, I guess it's been, due to being short-staffed here while someone's out on leave. And they've been doing a great job here. I haven't received any complaints from anyone, any of the department heads or anyone else here in City Hall. I think some of these people out here can attest, along with Darren and the mayor. So with that said, I'm looking for I'm asking for your approval to go with FKI for a cleaning service, yearly cleaning service at the library. And going with FKI, I think they'll bring a better service, more professional service to the library than what we're getting with our temp agency right now. They've done very detailed work here at the City Hall. They're in weekly correspondence with myself or Chad. And so.
They've been here since May?
Yes, and cleaning City Hall since May.
We had a employee out on sick leave, and so we needed to go ahead and cover that, and we already had, as Wayne said, we had a individual through the temp agency who's done a good job too, but he was working over at the library. We had one of our permanent staff was working over public safety for security clearance purposes, so we needed to go ahead and check and have somebody here at City Hall. So, again, yes, since May they've been here, done a good job.
It's just for the library, though?
Yeah,
This is just for the library. The other individual will come back off of sick leave, hopefully
And hopefully the end of this month. like
at the end of this
22nd.
month, the last week of this month. And so then we'll be back up to 2 permanent full-time staff members, and then this would go ahead and just cover the library.
They clean for the boards of grade school, and they do a wonderful job, so.
I think they also clean for St. Clair's, City Hall, and Public Safety, too.
Did you say today that they were going to do it in the evening as well, or
That's,
is that debatable?
we're still, if it would be approved tonight, we're still kind of trying to hash that out based on who they may hire.
Okay.
Staffing, when they're available and things like that. So ideally, we'd like for them to, but If not, worst case scenario, we could probably still get by with doing it during the day or late afternoon,
Okay.
which is what we've been doing since January.
So before we had the FKI, we had 2 full-time.
We had three full-time permanent, and we went down to 2. And so, like I said, the second one has been out with sick leave, so we're just down to 1 right now. But the other one's going to come back.
The is going to cover the 30,000.
Correct.
Is there a plan through attrition or whatever to eventually have these?
We could take a look at that every budget year. I think we're going to take a look at that. I will also let you know that, and I just told Wayne for the purposes of this contract for the time being, just to leave it out of the recommendation, but I'll go ahead and recommend, or bring it up now. They've also given us fees for rentals, for like if they'll go ahead and do a one-time fee for cleanup at City Auditorium, Senior Center, et cetera. We're just waiting for the fee committee to go ahead and review what we want to bring forward to the plan, or to the park board, and eventually the city council to go ahead and make those changes. And but we may also have those, might take advantage of those fees that they've provided for that. I feel that that would be much better, because then whoever's running those facilities can pay those fees, and then that frees up time that we have for our park employees to be doing other things. But they also threw that in there.
They run all the proper insurance and stuff to do work on city property.
That's correct. My only concern right now that we would have, that we'd probably just limit it to in the future, obviously we're talking about library for now, maybe City Hall, but with public safety, that we've got security measures that they have to go ahead and pass, and so that may weigh into it.
My only question I have is, I don't know how many hours it takes to clean the library, but $500 some a week would be a full-time 40-hour job, right?
And you see the numbers. I mean, it's pretty close, but as far as this, you don't have to, you can go ahead and sub it out, you don't have to worry about benefits, et cetera. So for the taxpayers, we feel it's a better service to go ahead and better cleaning. And
Are they using our chemicals, or are they supplying their own?
They'll supply their own. We'll supply paper products and trash bags, but all the chemicals they'll supply.
It's cheap.
Part of that list they gave, they're gonna do
That's awesome.
It'd take 40 hours.
he says it was including, I thought it
Good.
was on top of it.
I recommend sending this on to council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Patke, to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One more
Thanks, Darren.
thing real quick. I mentioned last week, or last month, I should say, at council, about the closing of Riverfront Park and when we do that. And at that time, there was a new process. Mark was working with us, John was working with us, and we the decision was made at that time to close the street at 27 and then the park at 28. And after talking with Mark and John and the chief, to stay consistent, and there's really not a whole lot of difference between 27 and 28 feet. To keep everyone on the same page, we decided to close the park at 27 feet. So when the river reaches 27 feet, the road and the park will close at the same time, just to be consistent. So it's going down now, so we should be okay, at least for a little while. So I just wanted to give you guys an update just in case it came up. So, all right, that's all.
Any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Wayne.
Any other department heads?
Anyone else?
It's a race.
It's a race. Well, I was kind of looking around. Good evening. I just want to give you an update. The replacement siren for International and Highway 100 has been ordered. It will be installed the last week of August, 26th through the 30th. So it'll be removed from our capital half-cent and capital improvement tax for next year, and it'll get replaced with our insurance money.
That including a new pole, I guess.
It includes a new pole. The only thing that would change what was done is if they were to hit rock, and they would have to blast or, remove the rock, whatever. But,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
So, that's it. Oh, and the siren that it's being replaced with is the omnidirectional. So instead of the ones that spin right now where you lose that, it'll actually go out 360 degrees. So it'll actually cover more area than it currently covered. So,
Cool, thank you.
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Good evening. This street department really doesn't have anything exciting going on, so we're doing some mosquito spraying still around the weather. We've had a lot of rain and high wind evenings, kind of slows it down a little bit. We are short one operator, so that's slowed us down some. We are doing some parking lot sealing. You may have seen some of the ones we're doing around town here. And general mowing and maintenance, pothole patching, just day-to-day stuff.
Still spraying weeds.
We are, as a matter of fact, our weed sprayers are helping us seal some of the parking lots too, so. Double duty.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay. Any questions of Tony?
Did a nice job on High Street patching those 2 holes.
Yeah, they come out good. We'll see how long they hold up.
This is probably not your department, it probably has to be to a complaint to the police first. I've got a lady who was really upset. She had a close call at 14th and Hooksville. Those weeds are head high. So I know we tell the property owner to cut them before we cut them.
We'll give them a letter, give them a certain amount of time. If they don't cut it, we cite them and then the city cuts it.
What is the criteria, when you guys go out for that, we had a call also, when you go out and look at it and decide that's too overgrown?
12 inches.
It's 12 inches? Okay. Gee, my yard's
We
getting.
have a little yardstick that they would use, stick it around. If it goes over the foot mark, they get
They have
Could you
the official.
Send somebody by
yardstick.
his house.
The official yardstick.
It's been hot.
Any other questions of Tony?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Mark?
Good evening, council. Just wanted to brief you on what's going on at the old Sporland number 1 site at East 6th Street. As you may recall, that site has been listed on the national priorities list for funding the federal Superfund for cleanup. The EPA will be coming out. You should have gotten an email invitation on Tuesday, July 16th. They will be coming out at 6:30 p.m. at the Knights of Columbus Hall for an open meeting to inform the public on basically the timeline and what the next steps are happening towards that cleanup process. And then they will also brief the council to what's going on that timeline, so everyone has a clear idea of how that process works as far as working towards the cleanup. And obviously, our long-term goal there is to try to get that the water and the land cleaned up, the soil cleaned up, and return that back to residential. It's a long-term goal.
Did you send something out asking us to come to an earlier meeting or something?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's the email came out that would be the meeting where they'll brief the council.
2:30?
That's at 2:30 that
Yes.
same day.
Mm-hmm. Same day while they're coming out. They're coming out of the Kansas, it's EPA Region 7. It's I believe it's Lenexa, Kansas, is where they're coming out of.
It will either be here in it will be upstairs in
Marbach.
Marbach room. I don't know if you're going to have enough room, so we may have to pull it down
Move it
here
here.
in
Okay.
council chambers, depending on how many of you show up and how many people they bring.
At the open meeting, Missouri DNR is also going to be attending. I was informed this afternoon. So we'll have representation of both federal and state.
Will they be able to tell us how far it's leached out, how far south it's went?
They have testing done. Actually, I have a copy of the map. I'm trying to pull that off my head. For the most part, it's gone down at some points like 30 feet, and it's leached out down to like 7th Street. you know, and, yeah, if you want, I have a map and you can look there of a theoretical plume, what they believe underground the water has spread to this point.
Is this an updated map, Mark, or is this the same
It's from about a year ago. So
Okay, I
I'm-
think it's a map you should have already received, though.
Yeah, yes.
But we got extra copies if you need it.
Mm-hmm. And actually, it's on the website as well. There is a site, it has its own website now that it's been listed.
Are they gonna have an updated map?
I'm not sure that they're going to do that. I didn't ask that direct question. You know, if they're going to show anything that's changed in the past year, I would believe it's just merely at this point to start doing the study and the cleanup.
Well, if they had a map from a year ago and they do another one now, they'd know how bad it's getting or how.
If it's progressed, I agree, but whether that'll be a good question for them to see if they're going to do any more testing with the wells to see if there's any more spread. They do have a number of monitoring wells that they're using now.
Okay, any other questions of Mark?
Mark, I told you this personally in a text, but I'd like to tell you again in public, I appreciate the updates on the river as far as closures go and things like that I mean, I know you can't predict the rainfalls, but I wish you could, but thank you. The heads up is nice to have.
Appreciate the comment.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kevin?
Really don't have a whole lot. Everything's going good in the water and wastewater side. We are going to be replacing a sewer line on Boone Street, from Boone Street, the middle manhole down to Third Street. So we'll have a construction equipment there. We're going to start that next week, the plan. So other than that, everything's going good. And to go off of what Mark just said about the Sporlan, I think it's probably a good thing to let all the residents know and you as council know that none of this has affected any of the city's deep wells. So all of our water supply is in good shape. So I'm kind of pass that along. So, we got any questions?
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else? Shawna, did you have anything?
Did you want to do council comments, or you want a closed session?
I've got one quick item I could get done to keep you from being detained later, that we could do an executive session between now and 7 o'clock, so.
Okay.
Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, or real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Heidrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Hatke.
Yes.
Scornia.
Yes.
Solenchuk.
Yes.
Wessels.
Yes.
Okay.